the ultimate Supercoach and fantasy sports show. You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Yes, g'day guys. Welcome back to Tinlist Tuesday, live on the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast, where we dive into all things NRL Supercoach, all the news for round 12, proudly sponsored by the Standard Squeeze. I'm your host, the Supercoach Brain, and I'm joined by my co-host, the Supercoach Mattrix. Matty, Teamlist Tuesday has come and gone. Time to talk through it. What have you taken from it? And a little bit of a kind of boring TLT again, 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I kind of like it. I like what's happened in a few of the teams. I like what's happened at the Dragons this week. Hook getting hooked and probably picking their best team. Yeah, I'm excited to go through it. There is a few talking points. So
it's amazing what happens when a coach gets dropped, and it sounds like Hook and the assistant coach at the Dragons who's taking over. His name is beyond me at the moment. But it sounds like they didn't agree on much. So he's obviously gone and made the team, or put the best team on the park. Who would have thought you can put the best team on the park and you might actually start playing some good footy? So that'll be interesting.
Hopefully, let's see what happens. Dragons were always my pick to be the team that finished last. So let's see if we're right.
Let's see. Guys, drop your questions below for round 12. Anything Teamless Tuesday, trade thoughts, whatever it be. We're definitely going to cover things like Billy Smith, Harrison Edwards, hold or sell, Joey Manu. There's a lot of questions around that have come through on Twitter, on YouTube, so hold tight if that's one of your questions. Luki, we'll talk about him as well. Do we sell Hosking? Jeremy Marshall-King versus Reece Robson at hooker. Who do we take to cover bye period? We've got it covered. So any other questions or any other players that you want to ask questions about, definitely throw them our way. Drop them in the comments. Let us know how you went last week as well. And before we dive in, please, if you want to support the show, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit like and subscribe just down the bottom there. And if you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, please hit follow and leave us a review. It's the only way that we can reach more people. We would really appreciate the support. All right, let's talk last week first of all, Matty. Score and rank. Now that we know what's happening, how did you go last week? You 12:30, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it was 11:93. Got updated with some unicorn points for Nico. Moved up 227 spots with 12:30. I think it was about a top 16% score. And still sitting in the 13,000s. Didn't really affect me too much at all. I just sort of held rank.
Yeah, a bit the same for me. 10 points less, 1220. I was sitting at about 4,000 or something like that. So down 500 spots into 8,970. So just kind of still in the 10K. So pretty happy with that. Some big scores coming in the chat. Troy Beard, 1283. Luke Roden, 1336. Thanks for hopping on, guys. Great scores. Got Herbie in the chat as well. Thanks for joining us, mate. And we've got a couple of questions from Troy, a good friend of the podcast as well. So we'll definitely be covering a couple of those things on Billy Smith.
Isn't the thumbnail Harlem Luki, not Scott Drinkwater? But yeah, it's okay. You're a good Cowboys supporter. I wouldn't watch their games either.
Yeah, I wouldn't be watching either. But yeah, Harlem Luki is the thumbnail this week. Funny looking Scott Drinkwater put on a bit of size, got stretched out a little bit, an extra few feet. Good luck to him. But mate, we'll talk the ins and outs for Supercoach purposes. Obviously, we won't touch every single team list, but all the things that are relevant for the week. We'll talk about trades and captains as well. But guys, lastly, throw those comments in. We will cover them throughout the show. We always do our best to try and get to all of them. Mate, before we do, Standard Squeeze, major sponsor of the podcast. Guys, if you haven't heard of the Standard Squeeze, I'm sure if you're a regular listener or a regular viewer on YouTube, you definitely heard of the Standard Squeeze. So go and check out their stuff they're on Instagram, Facebook, all the social media. They're also at thestandardsqueeze.com. Go and check out their stuff. Use the Insight 15 code as well. If you wanted something like this, like a little 4-in-1, keeps your drink hot, cold. And then Matty's got his little squeeze there as well that gives you the perfect shot every single time. So you can track how much you've been drinking. And if you do need to drive, it'll give you a better idea of whether you can drive and when you'll be right to get on the road. So quality products, go and check them out. Insight 15 is the code to get 15% off. Speaking of squeeze, we got a squeeze of the week winner, Matty, and they've left us in their dust as always. Every single week I feel very insecure about my score when I start going through the squeeze of the week. But the winner this week with the highest score in our unlimited league goes out to Jaden, coach of, this is a good one, Nico Lyons, with a 1405. Won't dive into what I think his nickname or his name means, but 1405, huge score.
Yeah. I think he had some hindsight with that one. So
yeah, you've used that in our chat the last couple of days. Don't think I haven't noticed. I do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hindsight.
Please do.
Mate, we've also got 4 in the top 100, which is pretty cool. Tim, coach of Lane Train, he's in 49th at the moment. Mike, coach of Turbo's Hammy, he's getting a mention recently in 63rd. Liam, coach of Filmer Balls, who I think from memory was the squeeze of the week winner the last week, into 94. And Troy, coach of Rowdy's in 97th. So some pretty solid efforts around the grounds at the moment. Pretty good. Good to have 4 of the top 100 in. Hopefully we can start to squeeze a few more in over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Oh, it's just good to see guys in the top 100, obviously, listeners. And I hope everybody. We don't always make the right decisions ourselves, but we at least discuss and put them all forward. Hey.
Yeah, that's it. I think every single week we'll throw whatever we've got, whatever we're thinking, we'll throw it out there on the pod every week. And obviously, something that we're working on in the background at the moment is a Discord server that we're getting up and running. So pretty exciting for us to get a bit of a community together for Supercoach fans and people that just want to talk Supercoach or talk footy, but not just NRL. We've got AFL, BBL coming up at the end of the year, NFL fantasy, NBA fantasy as well. That'll be starting up very soon as well with Matty Garrett. So the podcast will start for NBA very soon. So plenty of exciting things. And obviously, if you're an FPL, Fantasy Premier League kind of guy, you like getting up at 1 a.m. in the morning to watch soccer, good luck to you. I don't. But if you like that kind of stuff, there's a server in there for that as well. All right. Let's rip into the ins and outs, mate. Penrith at the Broncos, up at Suncorp. What have you taken from this one, team list-wise?
Yeah, look, pretty... I suppose it's the Broncos, looking after their players, resting Renault this week, not rushing him back, still tie top of the table. Give Jock Madden a run. He's going to practice all week at halfback. And hopefully we'll be more prepared because we did go, I wouldn't call it shambles, but we weren't fantastic without Reynolds. Last week, we probably did our best with a few stopgaps and chuck some Band-Aids on and see what happened. But, we've got Jock Madden. We brought him in for this. Here's our backup. Renault's getting older, could be injured a bit more often. So, we've got Jock Madden in. And then for the Penrith team, we've got Hosking in. Very good news. I actually didn't know that it was a HIA that kept him out. I just thought Scott Sorensen was on a tear and they decided to keep Hosking off. So, he is back in after, a HIA. So,
my understanding was that they just kept, like you said, kept him off. I think he passed his HIA on field. They just didn't decide to put him back out there in the second half. So, that's been confirmed anyway. So it's good to see he's been named. I guess one of the major questions this week is, do we trade Hosking? 70-odd break even. Has his time kind of come? Is it time to move on to guys that are going to play around 13? So we'll cover that when we talk about the big ins and outs and the most sold and the most bought, I think, because that'll be a very popular question. I can already see it coming up in the chat. So we'll definitely talk about that very soon. Spencer Lenu, ruptured testicle, poor bloke. You've got in the notes here, split nut. Yeah, that's very subtle from you. I like it. Poor bloke, man. I can't imagine how painful that would be. Apparently, he wanted to go back out in the field. So it was a training session, and he went through a full training session. And then when he got in the showers, he kind of thought, hang on, there's something not going right here. Went and had surgery and everything the next day, like emergency surgery, and then wanted to get back to training the next day. Guy's an animal. Mate, I would be on the lounge for the next fortnight if that were me.
I'd be longer than that for me, I reckon. So.
Roosters Dragons, mate. Next one. Pretty big one. Considering obviously Hook's gone, like you mentioned.
Yeah, doesn't look like Anthony Griffin will be at the game, so
maybe he'll be sitting in the stands with the crowd. I doubt he'll show his face around.
He might be in a Roosters jersey.
Could be. But Zach Lomax comes back into this team. Everybody that went with Max Fine disappointing, I guess, but we always knew this would be a risk with Lomax, and I think that's why we both held off on Max Fine. Look, hey, it gives us a leg up on everybody who wasted a trade there. But he made a little bit of cash, didn't he? 50, 60 grand or something like that. So not complete waste. Not a Trent Peoples from last year.
Yeah, not a Hayes Dunster where he plays most weeks and, still doesn't cover his 18 break even. So,
Yeah, well, he won't be covering his break even this weekend because he's not named. So, stiff. Hey, but you're looking at Jacob Little.
Yeah, look, I just think with them and by dropping out, look, we of course have the issue of having Sully on the bench, but let's see where he comes in. Look, if Little can get more minutes with a new coach, he's somebody that I could look at. Yeah, good price, a real talent, somebody that I've been keeping my eye on all year. And the Sully injury, I got even more excited. He's 345k. Look, he's got a break even of 68, so could even go below that. Hey, it could be a really good side move from, say, a Sonny Luke or somebody like that. If he scores a 60 or something this week and gets up close to his break even, him to Sonny Luke could be a real play. I don't have Sonny Luke. It's not something I'm looking at. But if you have Sonny Luke, it could be a real sideways move and you could make some cash.
Fair shout. I'd probably pass personally. With new coach coming in, I mean, look, he's been the assistant coach and we know that he's had a fair bit of pull in the background, but I'm still not confident. And I feel like there'll be a few changes and a bit of Tetris going on until they get that side right and he creates a bit of identity behind his team. So probably a watch on any Dragons players, aside from the obvious ones like your Jack Birds, who's been named on an edge this week. And then obviously Jack DeBellin's playing at prop still. So nothing's really changed there. You mentioned obviously what's his name, Drew Hutchison, playing halfback this week.
Yeah, it's gross. I don't like it. They probably don't have too many other options. I just wonder if they did have, he's their stopgap basically in any position. They put him in at center. They've put him in at lock. They've put him in the halves. Yeah, I just wish that or maybe they just don't have anyone. I haven't really looked too deep at their 30. They've got a lot of big names and they play every week. But yeah, I just wish that they put a specialist 7 in.
Yeah, would be good. I mean, they're starting to run out of blokes though with Sam Walker now. Obviously, he's going to miss a month, I think it is, with a sprained ACL. So They'll probably be quite cautious with that. It'll be very interesting though, because the big talking point's Joey Manu, right? Do we hold Joey Manu? Do we sell him? Plenty of talking points. We'll cover that a little bit later because we've pretty much got a whole segment on what we do with Joey Manu.
Yeah, so we both have Joey Manu, so it's a big play.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, Sullivan named on the bench again, Hunt in the 7. So anybody who went with Sullivan either last week or the week before, I mean, last week he got a 1. So that cash is going to dry up very quickly that everybody was hoping they were going to get some quick cash from. So
yeah, he did get 11 in, he did get a little bit and not too many minutes, and then obviously got sin binned. It was just Hook being Hook. I wouldn't, like Steve was saying in the comments, we all know how Sonny Luke to Sullivan went last week. If I had Sullivan, I definitely wouldn't trade him out this week. I'd just wait and see what this how it's going to roll out. And I'm doing the same with Jacob Little. Definitely not adding him this week, but it's just, you know what? If I'm finding something to watch in the Dragons game, it's probably that.
Yep. Good shout. Next one, Eels at Rabbitohs. Mitch Moses comes back into this team, but the big sad, I guess, this week is Sean Lane could miss 6 to 8 weeks with that hamstring.
I've had next week circled in my calendar as the week that I get Sean Lane all year. I'm glad he got injured this week and not next week because he would have been in my team. Look, again, if you save your trades later on in the year, he could be somebody that you still run home with. He's got that 30 in his rolling average. You know what? Let's see where he is at round 20. Rolls back in, gets a couple 50s, earns his starting spot, and you finish with Sean Lane. Sounds like a good plan to me.
Yep. And perfect little segue, Steve's comment, the Cardi party. It's Tuesday, mate, and the Cardi party keeping going. It's still going. I think we're into day 3 now of the Cardi party where the bender just keeps going. You know, people you have a little bit of a nap in the morning and then you break out the spirits kind of lunchtime, and then before you know it, it's 10 p.m. and you're about 13 deep. What are your thoughts on Cardi? I mean, obviously, if you've got him, you hold him now, right? Because it's a big window now that's open for him.
If you've got him, you hold him. Obviously, I don't have him. I don't think he's a buy at 490k.
Yeah.
But I would just keep riding the wave if I had him. I would play him this week. I'd play him most weeks, to be honest. But yeah, I'm probably just going to spend 490k somewhere else.
I think Andrew Davey, obviously being in and around this squad now and seeming to get himself a starting edge role over Cartwright at this point. It seems like Davies preferred to Cartwright. We don't even see Matt Dory on any of these team sheets anymore. So, I think Davies probably a better option than Cardi, but I don't think you consider either. And we've spoken a lot in the past about making sure you don't load up too much on Eels players for that round 14 bye. So you want to make sure that when you're picking Eels players, you're picking the best option. And I feel like Cardi, Andrew Davey, these kind of guys, Dunster, Simonson, you mentioned last week, you're not just going to pick these guys up just as a number. You want to make sure that you maximize the quality of Eel player that you get, and the same goes for Manly and the Knights as well. But speaking of quality Eels players, Hopgood, now if he doesn't get selected for Origin, which I personally don't think he will, is he a must now? Like, if you traded him out, would you go and bite the bullet and just get him back in? Because you actually did trade him out, right?
Yeah, I've traded him out. I traded him out at a really good time, and he started to leak cash after that. And I thought, you beauty, I've done exactly the right thing. And then in the last couple of weeks, he's, went and got another 120K on the board. And I'm just starting to think, do I just get him back? Look, I'm going to wait for team selections. I've waited this long. But honestly, if Ryan Madison gets selected for Origin and Hopgood doesn't, obviously, Lane's not there. I'm not super interested in spending 400K for Davey or, 500K for Cardi. Dory's not involved. Like, he could be the guy. Like, he could be a genuine captain option. He's been that good. I've captained him this year already. Like, I rate the guy. I just thought when Ryan Madison come back, he would resume the spot, and Jermaine Hopgood might have went to a 30, 40-minute role, and the Jermaine Hopgood party's rolling on too. Like, a lot better than the Cardi party.
Yeah. They've got like high level spirits at the Hopgood party, whereas Cardi party, they've just got like goon bags on the clothesline. So
yeah, pretty Lexia.
Yep. Love a bit of passion pop. Moving on to the Knights at the Sharks. Connor Tracy stays in for Talakai this week. Talakai 2 weeks with this neck issue. There hasn't been too much news coming out about this one either, but Talakai, big pod play if you went with Talakai, but he was actually starting to string together some good points over a couple of weeks now. So bit of a shame for him, but
you wouldn't race him back against the Knights. So, I'm not reading too much into it.
I think they've got the Knights into the bye. So he'll be back round 14, I'd say, is what will happen, which means Connor Tracy gets a bit of an extended run, which is cool because I love Connor Tracy. For anybody who follows me on Twitter would know I'm a big Connor Tracy fan. So it's nice to see him getting some time. Hopefully he can work his way into a spot. It's just such a stacked back line at the Sharks, isn't it? He's going to be pretty hard done by to find a spot unless he's the 14 in that team.
Yeah, could get some. I suppose when he's playing every week, he's a chance of scoring. But yeah, you really need an injury to get involved. Honestly, there's an injury almost anywhere in their team, and I think that they find a spot for this guy.
Yep. So Troy's asked, do you bite the bullet, bring Hopgood back in? Your answer's probably yes, based on what you've just said, right?
Yeah, not just yet, but next week. I just want to see what happens. It would be devastating to add him this week, and then he's like the 18th man or something for Origin. And
I think the same applies to Ryan Madison if you haven't picked him up. I mean, Maddo's a great option, but he's played 50 and 55 minutes or something the last 2 weeks. He's a wait and see for round 13 as well. And I think a lot of these decisions we can make next week. It doesn't seem like any of these guys have a really low break even. They're going to be out of reach next week. So you can just sit and have a look for a week and play it out next week.
There's a world where I bring Maddo and Hopgood in next week if they don't get selected.
Some other talking points in this one. McInnes out 4 weeks. Ruins a bit of Origin cover, I guess, but I mean, not overly. I don't know how many people were really looking at McInnes, but does this make Royce Hunt relevant now? Like, how many more middles do they have left at the Sharks? Like, they've got no middle forwards. Braden Hammond-Welly's still out.
Anytime I've ever looked at Royce Hunt, he's disappointed me. So
yeah, I mean,
like, he's a talent. And he is a PPM beast. But then when he does get those bigger minutes, his PPM drops immensely. So yeah, I'd be interested. I think he's just a really good 30-minute player. And I think that's what Royce Hunt is.
Yeah, and also, I guess, being front row forward only, you're wanting him for that kind of front row forward position. And then you've got Harrison Edwards this week, who, I mean, spoiler alert, I'm not massive on him, but I would still, if I had to pick between him and Royce Hunt, I'd pick Harrison Edwards. Just makes sense. Minus 40 on break even.
Yeah, Harrison Edwards seems like the guy that I have wanted all year, and like for whatever reason, I'm not doing it. So,
Yep. Lastly, Adam Elliott played 35 minutes last week, started to bleed a bit of cash, which is good. I mean, your question, I guess, is when does he become the starting lock? Because
yep.
that's why he was recruited to go to the Knights from Canberra. I don't know how long. I mean, Kurt Mann is out, so we don't know how long Kurt Mann's going to be out for, but it seems like a long time. I reckon they're going to warm him into his work, considering he's been out for that long. I think you're still probably going to see a month of Adam Elliott coming off the bench, which is great for Supercoach.
Yeah, and I wonder if, what are we up to? Round 12. It's about round 15 that I'd probably really start to look at Adam Elliott, and if he's got sort of that 50, 55 break even, and it looks like there's an opportunity for, again, probably 50, 55 minutes, he's a guy that I'd really want because I love his game for Supercoach. I think that he is one of the best players on the Knights. I think Kurt Mann, again, is a little bit of a stopgap, and Adam Elliott is the future.
Agreed. A few questions, mate. We're halfway through these teams. There's a couple of questions that have come through. Hosking we won't cover yet. Where was it? Here we go. Melissa Hanson's asking, thinking Grant to Robson this week and Cam Murray to either Hylam Luki or Hudson Young. Worried about Origin.
So, really like Grant to Robson. I would be moving on Harry Grant if I had him going into the Origin period. Cam Murray's a different one. Cam Murray has leaked so much cash probably since that you've bought him that I would, for 540K, I would probably sit him on the bench. I really like the Hylam Luki ad, and I really like the Hudson Young ad. But also, if you're scared of Origin, there's probably a chance that Hudson Young gets picked as well. There's no chance Hylam Luki gets picked. I would sit Cam Murray on my bench. For 540K Cam Murray, I'm honestly considering getting him and sitting him on my bench just for the run home, hoping that he hits his straps and he becomes that 700K player again. Cam Murray's too talented to trade out for 540K and to get a guy like Hylam Luki. That's just it for me. I like Luki. I like Hudson. I think I'd find somebody else. You've got 6 second rowers.
Yeah. I initially was disagreeing with you last week, and I was thinking that Cam Murray might be a sell, but you made a really good point around the fact that, like, you bought him at top dollar. I'm assuming you got Cam Murray at 760K or whatever it was when he first started, and you've had to cop all these shit scores. You may as well just keep him. The Rabbitohs have a really nice run through Origin as well. I mean, yes, he will miss 13, 16, and 19, but you can afford to hold a couple of Origin players. You don't need to have 25 active players through this period. So I would hold him now if I had him as well.
Yeah, and it was more of a bit of a gut that I wasn't super high on Cam Murray to start the year because I just thought he was a little bit too much money. But 550K Cam Murray or whatever it is, if you told me that at the start of the year, I would think you're absolutely bonkers. And the more I say it, the more I'm like, why aren't I just stashing this guy for 540K and playing him every game that he plays?
Yep. Sonicky is asking, straight trade Khan Pereira to Alex Johnston. Is there enough upside there?
I think you're getting the same player, both in really good. I think you're getting the same player. You're basically trading Khan Pereira for an older Khan Pereira. Khan Pereira is the second highest scorer. And I know everybody thinks of him as a 200K cheapie that's 540K, but he's got like a break even of like 20. He's 530K. He's come off 2 doubles in a row. Yeah, I actually probably prefer, I'm probably a Manu keeper at this stage, but I think you can find somebody else to trade for AJ. He's cost you 200K, play Khan Pereira on matchups. I think I said the other week, and yeah, maybe I'm really lucky because everybody's super frustrated with Khan Pereira, but I've actually played him and I reckon he's averaged early 70s in every game that I've played him on average. Yeah, just make sure, have a look. We use Arson Dragon stats as to whether that wing scores well against the other team, and there's a really good defensive winger on that side. And using that logic, I feel like I've found a bit of a pattern with AKP. I'm going to be doing the same with AJ, but I've been a bit disappointed in AJ since I've owned him.
Yeah, they keep going right a lot, don't they? Love going right. Love going to Campbell Graham, Tane Milne's side. So, I mean, look, it's going to switch eventually. I know teams are going to start to cotton on to the way that they're playing, and then they'll just go to left, their best edge. So I'm not overly worried about AJ. He's going to come good eventually.
Would you train out Cabrera for him?
I don't think I would. No, I don't think I would. I mean, I did that move about 3 weeks ago. So if I had AKP, I'd ride the wave, and I don't know whether I would. I'd find another way.
If Cabrera had a break even of 111, yes, I would. But he's got a break even of 22.
Yeah, well said. Steve can't trust Luki with Payton. Yeah, look, there's a risk there with Todd Payton. He changes his forward rotation every single week. At the moment, though, there's no sign of Luciano Leilua. We know Nanai is bound to come back, but that means Koshevsky will drop out. There's no way that Koshevsky starts over Hylam Luki. And I don't think that Lolo will impact edge minutes. So, and from what we saw from Hylam Luki, we knew this is what he was capable of. Such a good player. I'm such a big fan. I'm really high on him. I feel like he will hold a starting edge role for the rest of the year, Hylam Luki. And I know there's risk there, but I think Leilua, they might even play him off the bench. They might play him through the middle of the field. He's got a bit of versatility there, Leilua. So if he does come back, that might be the play.
Break even of 14. Yeah, I know. Like, you don't actually have too much to lose. If you're sitting there with 23 trades, then yes, I understand it. But if you're sitting in a really good spot with 26 or 27 trades or even more going into this week, with a break even of 14, either you're going to make money, you're going to get a good round 13 number. Yeah, like maybe Hylam Luki isn't a keeper. Are you really looking for a keeper for 500K? If you're looking for a keeper, trading Cam Murray for 30K more.
Yep. Troy would like to get Ponga this week. Doesn't have enough trades for luxuries. I think we just need to remember that Ponga, good chance he plays Origin, and then also will miss round 14. So you're going to get Ponga for round 12, and then you're going to have 2 games where he's not going to play for you. He'll be back round 15, then he'll miss 16. So he'll play like 1 game in 4 weeks.
Yeah, and like what I said with Cam Murray, and I was going on that rant when you brought it up about stashing him. You have 6 second rowers. You only have 2 guys. If Ponga's, gets rested after Origin, and you have deal bags, you get an AE for round 14, and that's not worth grabbing Ponga.
Yep. I'm with you on that one. Last question here before we get into the second half of the games. I'm going to Taruva. So Mark's saying Taruva to AJ this week. Feels like that side against the Eels right side defense is good for a couple of meaties. And I completely agree. I love the para matchup. Any single time I'm taking like an edge second rower or a winger or anything, I'm playing him against para because we know that there's some points on both edges.
Yeah, and Taruva's kind of looked really good, but AJ's just that quality of talent that I prefer that over an AKP trade.
Agreed. Luke, we'll cover Harrison Edwards very soon, mate. Moving into Cowboys Tigers, Taumalolo about a week away. No side of Luciano Leilua. Still another 2 weeks left for Nanai as well, so he's out for 2 more weeks with suspension. So you won't get him for round 13. No changes for the Tigers for the second week in a row. This is very foreign territory for me. Used to reading out half a team sheet about the Tigers, but not really anybody super coach relevant in this side, I guess, aside from Isaiah Papali'i, who I'm watching very closely for round 14. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm looking at the West Tigers forward pack for round 14, whether it's somebody like Clemmer, who I don't think will make an Origin team, whether it's somebody like IPAP, who we just know is quality. I really liked what I saw from IPAP this week because I've been disappointed all year. I probably need to see it this week as well. So,
yeah, and then he'll have a break around 13. Tigers don't play 13, but then they play 16, 19. So he's a really good round 14 pickup, I think. Yep. So Tigers will start to come into the conversation when we're talking round 14.
And we might need to add players to field a whole team in round 14. So,
yeah, that's going to be a trap round for a lot of people that have gone real heavy on Eels, Manly, Knights players, as we've mentioned a couple of weeks. And also for anybody who missed the buy planner episode, make sure to go back and check it out. I think it was a few videos ago now, but we did one a couple of weeks ago now. Well, last week on how to manage the buy period from round 12 to 20. So still very relevant. Go and check it out.
I still think that's our best work. So
yeah, agreed. Definitely. Storm and Dolphins. The only disappointment really here is Valence Tavare not being named, which means I owe you another 4-pack of Bolter. So just add it to my tab.
Yeah, cool. I can't wait for that ute to turn up full of all the bolter that you're going to owe me because you
It's
don't
going to
get
be
too
a
much
bloody.
right, do you?
It's going to be a 40-foot shipping container by the end of the season.
Yeah.
So that's okay. I'll just make sure I come up and at least drink a couple with you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Titans Bulldogs, mate. Josh Adokar comes back. We thought he was going to be back last week, but obviously he had another week. Dr. Fox got it wrong, as Phil Gould likes to say. So Josh Adokar should be back this week, though. Very close last week, just missed it. So good to see him. But I guess the big talking point here is that Carlo Luapu starting for the first time. Josh Reynolds back to the bench. We knew it was a matter of time. It's good to see them get a crack, though.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. Look, he's probably still only going to play, maybe a 50, 60-minute role with Renault lurking there. But maybe Renault plays a bit of middle, which is, again, another concern when it comes to our boy Harrison Edwards as well. But he did get named 13 again. There's no Pele in the lineup. Yeah, look, I'm excited to see Oluwapu hopefully step up. But, coming off 25s and things like that, he's not mad yet.
No. Yeah, hold fire there.
Especially with the bye lurking.
Yep, spot on. Lastly, Sea Eagles, Raiders, both these teams play round 13, so a bit of relevance here when we're talking Supercoach, bye planning, etc. Tom Starling coming into the team. Danny Levi coming back from that broken jaw as well, so Tom Starling starts.
That was a pretty gruesome broken jaw, wasn't it?
It was not nice at all. I think it was a double break, wasn't it? So through the middle of the jaw and then through the edge. So definitely not nice, but good to see him back.
Yeah.
Supercoach-wise, though, not so much Gerbo. He's back, but he's back earlier than presumed. So he only missed 2 weeks. So it's good to see him back. He might come back into contention now for New South Wales, depending on how he goes this week. It'll be very interesting. You can't have a semi-fit Gerbo not play in Origin.
Yeah, no. If he's good to go, I think at least Freddie makes the call and says, "Hey, mate, are you ready? If you're not 100%, we'll get you in for game 2." But yeah, I think that conversation will happen.
Yep, spot on. What else have we got? Schuster's back.
Yeah, Gerbo and Schuster back in earlier than I expected. Kelma and Aloiai out. I believe Kelma Tuolagi's out for 6 weeks.
Yeah, I think they're both out for a while because Aloiai dislocated shoulder, so that's going to be a bit of time for him.
Yeah. Any Supercoach relevance that sort of comes into this is Burbo named on the edge there. I think he's got a -3 break even and plays round 13 and is bottom dollar. Is Burbo somebody that you'd look at?
Honestly, not this week. I mean, he's got a -3 break even, I think it is. So, yes, he'll make a bit of cash starting on an edge. I'm a big fan of Burbo. I think he's a good player. I just feel like there's other moves I want to make this week that are a little bit more of a priority in terms of break even and points. But Burbo could be a genuine option for round 13 next week. The only reason, and I said to you this before we went live, is I'm really cautious about adding too many Manly and Knights players around my Eels players for round 14. That's probably the only reason I'm holding back, because I will be pretty skint coming into round 14. I think it might be a little bit of a challenge for me I think I've got 18 maybe active players that week, so I'll need to be pretty careful.
Yeah, so I'm not. So it's something I'm considering. And it's not even a cash grab or anything like that. I think my trades will net me about 300K this week in the bank. It's just, we were talking about it off air about how useful Braden Williami has been for me this year. He's slopped from second row back to center wing, probably find his way back in second row. Am I overthinking it if I can get a guy with a negative break even that's pretty good at footy that I can just add? I like a second rower that plays in center wing more than a center wing that plays in the second row. I'm just wondering if I'm overthinking it, and it's probably worth a trade, at least for around 13 number. I can just straight swap Williami. I think he drops out of the team. I hope he doesn't become an AE nightmare, which I hate. He did become an AE nightmare last year through this
Troy,
period.
yeah, and Steve makes a good point. That's something you got to consider there, because he's so.
Sorry, I didn't read that.
He's so versatile. It kind of goes against him. He's a Tyrone Peachy kind of mold player where you can play him in the centers, you can play him in the edge, you can play him as a utility off the bench. He can cover so many positions that it's actually a downfall for him, Supercoach wise. So whilst the duel might be nice, it might bite you in the ass with him coming off the bench, getting 15 minutes and scoring you 11. ruining your loop for that week. So worth a consider.
Yeah, maybe hopefully, Valia does an ankle or something and Williami gets a run, because now was about the time period that he should be back from his injury. I just think Valia has probably earned that spot.
Yeah, I think Valia will have it. Thank Diggs. How are you, man? Thanks for hopping on. Ola Kawatu, I guess, is the last question, Matty.
Yeah,
You're an Ola Kawatu fan. You've been watching him pretty closely. I had him nearly all last year. He was so good for me. But obviously, Origin is looming.
I got him last year, probably at the wrong time. I paid the premium after Origin, and that's sort of where he went to water a little bit, started punching out some 40s and things like that. We know he is a little bit reliant on those attacking stats. But if he's not selected for Origin, just remember, like, we're talking about Matto, we're talking about Ola Kawatu, we're talking about Hudson Young. Maybe they just add a Nat Butcher or somebody like that in there. All these guys can't get selected. So, yeah, I'm throwing Ola Kawatu on my watch list. If I was selecting the team, he would be there. He's not. If he's not there, he's selected in my team.
Yep. I understand why you would. I'm definitely going to be very cautious and watch next week to see. Obviously, I think, is it Sunday night or Monday they announce Origin squads?
Yep.
So keep an eye out for that. You don't need to make moves this week. And I mean, but there's some obvious moves this week that you can make that don't have any Origin implications. So
yeah,
any kind of touch and go Origin players probably pass. Wait a week.
Yeah, and as somebody that went Hudson Young, what was it, a week or so ago, I'm a bit nervous. I actually didn't really believe the hype that he would get selected, even though, watching him, he's got that attacking upside that I really like in a second rower. But yeah, I don't know, he's up for consideration too, and it'll be devastating for my team if he gets selected. So don't make that mistake with probably Hudson Young this week, Ola Kawatu this week, Ryan Madison this week. Yeah, all those blokes.
A few more questions about Manu. We'll cover that very soon. Karaz, definitely an option now. We're starting to look at him. I guess round 14 will probably be the play, considering they play the two major buys after that. If you're good for 13, maybe he's a play this week. Maybe you pick up Karaz this week. You just stash him. You know that he's going to miss 13, but if you've got numbers for it, I'm a big Karaz fan, as are you. And I think that from what we've seen from him, he's a top 4 centre wing this year. So you can definitely do much worse going early on him. Might be a bit of a play this week. Who knows?
Yeah, and, they've got to, teams have to worry about Adokar at one end and Karaz on the other. There won't be so much, I suppose, focus on him. He could get some more kick meters. When you go to him, he's like a second rower running back there. And we know he's got 150 in him. Like, he just might not leak cash. There is that, there is that chance.
Let's cover the JMK versus Robson debate, I guess, because everybody's looking for the guy that people can go from Harry Grant down to, and that will cover them through the bye period. And I guess there's a couple of different ways to look at this. Reece Robson with the Cowboys, he'll play round 13 and 16. So they're only one of 4 teams in the competition that will play the first 2 major buys. And also the benefit with the Cowboys cover is that they're the only team on the bye in round 15. So you don't get caught out at any other point throughout the Origin period. The same applies for the Dolphins, though. They play round 13 and 19. And I'm just trying to work out when their bye is, but I'm certain they've got a bye in the middle of Origin somewhere. No, they miss round 16 and then 21. So I guess Robson and JMK are both going to play the same amount of games through that 13 to 20 period. They're both going to miss one. But the difference, I guess, is that Cowboys miss 19, Dolphins miss 16. So maybe the play could be, if you've got trades up your sleeve, you could go Robson to start. And then once we get past round 16, you could pick up JMK round 17 to take you through the rest of it.
Yeah, look, I've already got Robson, so it's not so much a concern for me. But JMK is somebody that I'm looking at. And I just worry that if you're sitting there with somebody like Reed Marnie, that maybe it is a little bit sideways, or at least sideways for the money that you're spending. I think Reed Marnie is covering his, I suppose, monetary value. And I suppose it's how you use that extra 150K. Like, if it's the difference between Andrew Davey and Ryan Madison, like, you could probably spend that money in your second row and just sit there on Reed Marnie and save that money. But if you're sitting there with Sonny Luke, or you're sitting there with Harry Grant, I'd probably like JMK over Robson. Robson's been a bit mid all year. Look, maybe he takes control a bit more of the game over this Origin period with Val and some blokes like that out. But I like JMK. He's the better player, but you're paying a premium for him. I just wonder if the 150k difference between, say, Amani and a Robson to JMK, where are you spending that 150k? Like if it's the difference between DeBallin and Stefano, or like, there's some of the comparisons as to where I don't think there's as big of a gap between some of these mid guys and JMK.
Yeah, when you look at JMK scores better than Robson this year. So in terms of priority, if the cash isn't an issue, you want to spend up. Or, I mean, I think Harry Grant to JMK is pretty sideways now in terms of cash. So you could do that. But you're right. You've got to think about what you're going to do with the extra 120, 130k between Robson and JMK. So I'm looking at Robson next week. That's who I'm going to look at, just purely because he plays the first two major buys and the round 15 won't affect me. I'll reassess after round 16. I'll look at round 17 and how my team looks. I'm the same. I've got Reid Marnie as well, and I've got Sonny Luke. So I'm ideally looking at going Sonny Luke up to Robson next week. But JMK, if you're looking at points and you don't care about how much you spend, I'd pick him over Robson.
Yeah, agree. JMK is the best option. I think he's the best player this year out of those blokes. It's just, like, where are you spending that money? Where are you getting it from? Is it going to cost you 2 trades where I don't think it's worth it? I think that there is a world where Robson just scores as many as JMK through this period as well. Steve's mentioned that JMK gets a lot of his points through attacking stats, whereas Robson gets it through, that base. Robson's safe as houses every week. So,
Yep. Jackson is asking, should he grab his cousin now, or he's most likely peaked?
Yep. Grab your cousin, bro.
Joey Tarpany. I feel like he'll be almost a must very soon, if not now. He's starting to ramp up a little bit. You can tell he's wanting to get a bit more involved. Minutes aren't necessarily there, but I feel like they're not far away. So I reckon grab him now.
Probably won't get selected for Origin, so he's in my lineup for round 13. So
yeah, he definitely won't be. All right, let's move into top 10 bought. A few of we've already talked about, but I guess, the one question that keeps coming up throughout this chat is Billy Smith versus Harrison Edwards. Now, if you're not in a position to grab both and you had to pick one, who's your choice?
Billy Smith.
You want to talk through why?
He's just come off, I think it was an 80 and a 90, 2 weeks in a row without scoring a try. You pointed that out to me. And Harrison Edwards, it's probably more about the red flags I have with Harrison Edwards more than why I'm getting Billy Smith. They love him. He's looked fantastic. He's actually scored these. What have the Roosters been? Minus 48 their last 160 minutes. And he's coming off an 80 or a 90. Like, what more do you need to see for a guy that you're paying 289k for? Harrison Edwards has a really good break even this week. And I think that he's somebody that's probably not going to be an AE nightmare, but I think there's a chance he drops out of the team in the coming weeks, maybe in the next couple weeks. And then you're sitting there with a Davi Moali or a Isaac Fa'asul Malahi. And what do you nuff him? Like, is it worth 2 trades, the money that he's going to make? He's already 290k. He already made 90k last week.
If you were smart enough to get on last week, great move. I just don't know whether I want to pay 300k for him, knowing that I had a look at the, and this is worth its weight in gold, mind you, NRL Physio's Patreon $5 a month thing where he does a casualty ward of every single injured player from every team. And I had a quick look at it. Just wanted to, out of curiosity, have a look at the Bulldogs' injuries. There are actually not many players left injured. I think Luke Thompson is probably the one with the Liz Frank injury that's going to be back in the next 4 weeks. And obviously he'll likely be the one playing in the middle of the field. He'll play at lock, or TPJ might move back to lock. I don't know how many minutes there are. At the moment, yeah, he probably might get maybe 2 to 3 weeks of cash gen. But again, you're spot on when you say that you're going to have to trade him out eventually. Also, remember, the Bulldogs aren't playing the first bye. Is he going to be there by round 16? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Then you could end up with a dead rookie that's sitting 16 and 19 where you would have used him, and now you've got to trade him out for 100, 150, 200K, whatever he makes.
So where the liar for me is, if you have less than 25 trades this week, are you going to have enough trades to ever cash these guys out? Or are you going to be sitting there with a 400K Harrison Edwards sitting on your team at the end of the year, which certainly is something I don't want to end with. I want a 200K Nuff sitting there. And, Tarpany, and if Jack DeBallin's the guy, if Payne Haas is the guy, yeah, that's what I want. I don't want a mid guy there that I can't waste the trade on for the sake of 200K or 110K.
I think Payne Haas is the guy, first of all. Yeah. He's your front row forward one. You'll probably want him come round 20. But yeah, you've got to think about who your front row forward two is. And then also, do you want like $1 million on your bench in front row? No, you probably want a guy like a Christian Welch kind of guy that you play on matchups, or that you can play if you're short on a buy or something like that at the back end of the season. But then you're going to want enough. You want a 200K Nuff as your fourth front rower, I reckon, this year, once the buys are finished. So I don't know whether Harrison Edwards is the option for me. I'm going to pick Billy Smith as well. He's in my team this week. And what you mentioned about the lack of scoring, I mean, he's only had a line breaker game, 2 line breaks of 20 points. He's only had 1 try assist, and then any other attacking stats are all kind of base and power. Like 150 odd points he scored in the last 2 weeks. And I think 35 or 40 of them have been attacking stats. So you're looking at a guy that's got pretty good base, makes a lot of tackles, gets himself involved, makes a lot of tough runs out of his own end. So the base is there for Billy Smith for me to jump on this week. And minus 62 break even as well. Like, that's free money.
Yeah, New Brown's the other guy that I was thinking of that has to come back into this team that's been starting at 13s as well. So you've got New Brown, you've got Luke Thompson. Is he like their third or fourth option at, if he's the Bulldogs' third or fourth option, is he going to be your third or fourth option? You can pick anyone from any team. They can only pick out of their top 30. What are you going to do?
Yep. Agreed. Hopefully I haven't jinxed him. Crazy Praying Mantis reckons sub 50 for Billy Smith now. Thanks, mate. Appreciate putting that out in the universe.
I actually read that and thought that he was talking about Brandon Smith, and I was like, that's Supercoach relevant.
Yeah, Brandon Smith, not anymore, as he looks a bit unfit at the moment.
Yeah.
So they're the first.
Looks a bit like me.
Top 2 most bought. Valence Tavare, when I did these stats, was 3rd most bought. I don't think that's the case anymore, considering he wasn't named. Everybody who went early, though, you just got to hold now, don't you? You've made your bed. You've got to lie in it by going early.
Yep. I did the same with Willie Army. He's just sitting there. Look, he's just sitting there. You get 7 of these center wings. Just leave him there. If there's an injury, he'll get a game. Might score well again.
Yeah, and he should get a game eventually. I mean, I don't see the I had a mind blank. The Dolphins are going to compete throughout the year, but I can guarantee you Brinko Lee goes down again injured.
Yeah.
And also, Ewan Aitken's injured, isn't he?
Yeah, Ewan Aitken's injured. That's actually what I was most worried about when you said I thought Brinko Lee's a bit of Wayne Bennett's love child. They love him up at the. So, yeah.
Yeah, what a place. Have you been to the up there? I know you're kind of around that area.
I did go to the, Branko Lee and Wayne Bennett were cuddling and drinking 4X Golds. It was good.
Excellent. 4th and 5th most bought, Ruben Garrick, 576K. He's got a 5 break even. He's bottomed out. So that's a good pickup this week, considering he'll play round 13. Obviously, depending on what's happening with Turbo, there's a good chance Garrick might play fullback in round 13. So that's a nice get. Tarpany is 5th most bought, 58 break even, 619K. That's a good price to get him at. So I agree with both of those. Number 6, Kalen Ponga, 484K with a 20 break even, coming into Origin. I don't know whether I love this pick this week.
Cam Murray's good enough for me to stash. Kalen Ponga isn't. Kalen Ponga is also a guy that will probably play Origin and probably has a 20 in him. If it was minus 60 break even, hell yes, I would be on him for his cash generation, and I would take the risk. But 20 break even, probably, could score 33 this week, and you're just going to be disappointed. And then he gets named in the Origin team, plays 2 times over 5 weeks. Waste of time.
Yeah. Just doubling back on Valence Tavare very quickly, Steve's mentioned that if Aitken's in major doubt and comes out at the last minute, Tavare he's on the extended bench. He could come in. So definitely, if you've gone early, just hold and, like we said, just enjoy that. But if he gets to his third game, then you pick him up. You do not go early on this guy, considering.
And it is possible, but you're not adding him for it. If you've got him, then fantastic. That's it. You don't add him. I suppose he's better than enough. But are you really nuffing round 11? You're probably not playing the same game, were you?
No, you can't be nuffing this early. And I think a couple of questions around nuffing and kind of, I want a guy that plays round 13 and all that kind of stuff. But I think that we need to be looking at nuffs from round 19, 20. I think it's way too early. With the bye every single week, maybe last year or in previous years, you could have nuffed early. But I think this year you just need as many active players as possible to cover all of the buys, all the weekly buys, excuse me. So I think... I'd hold off nothing.
Jermaine Hopgood, a fan of nothing early, even in the old days. It's even more prevalent this year. Yeah,
cash gen's still important, even through the middle of the season. So 8th, 9th and 10th we've mentioned in passing throughout this episode. Jermaine Hopgood, 8th most bought. Jeremy Marshall-King, 9th most bought. Payne Haas, 10th most bought. The Payne Haas one is interesting, considering everybody knows he'll be playing Origin. But he's the best front rower. So if your numbers are good for the Origin, the major buy rounds, most people have been looking at it by now. Payne Haas, if you're weak up front, just plug and just hold him for the year.
Yeah, he's better sitting there than Devi Moali if you're sitting there with that much money on the bench. But I just really find a way to find that extra 600K's difference. So.
Now, what are your thoughts on the 7th most bought player, Hylam Luki? We spoke about him last week and we spoke about him on Sunday. Now, I guess the main question around Hylam Luki is job security and how long he's going to get 60 plus minutes on an edge. And there has been a little bit of concern around Todd Payten's forward rotation, and with Taumalolo coming back, with Luciano Leilua kind of lurking around. We're not quite sure what's going on with his court case and all those kinds of things. They've still got Jeremiah Nanai to come back. There are job concerns or job security concerns, but what are your thoughts on Hylam Luki? Is he somebody that you'd look at this week?
He is somebody that I'd look at this week. I do really like it. I think I'm in a position where I need to save trades, and I'm not sure it's hit out of the park. But when I look at the Cowboys through the bye period, which you're probably the expert through the bye period, and you're looking at adding Hylam Luki, I think that with his 10 break even, he's obviously an absolute talent. He's got that attacking upside, and he could just base 50 every week, I think. I think it's almost a no-brainer if you have the trade. Like maybe a Hosking to him. I think Billy Smith is probably more of a priority of adding this week. But maybe it's a luxury trade. But, Hosking could leak cash this week. He's playing against the Broncos. The Broncos are good. I know I'm a little biased. But I really like the Hylam Luki ad this week.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong there. I don't trust Todd Payten either. Not even close. But Taumalolo plays in the middle. We know he's going to play at lock. He's not going to shift to an edge. I feel like we've got Luki, Nanai, Gashevsky, and Luciano Leilua that will probably rotate through an edge at some point. Does Hylam Luki need 80 minutes to go into my team? No. If he needed 80 minutes to be in my team and I needed to see 80 minutes on the field from him, I probably wouldn't add him, to be honest. But I think I'm confident, looking at their rotation, looking at their bench, that he'll get 60 plus. And if he gets 60 minutes, he's good enough to be in my team with the attacking upside, and also with the fact he covers around 13 and 16.
And he's so much better than Jack Gashewski. So much better. Like leaps and bounds. And it's 500K.
This guy got Rookie of the Year for the Cowboys, but we know how highly they think of him. The only reason he hasn't seen major minutes and massive time is because of the injury, the ACL that he did last year, meant that Nanai obviously was the one that got the spotlight last year. But that could have easily been Hylam Luki last year. We could have been talking about how well Hylam Luki did last year instead of Jeremiah Nanai.
I'm adding him now.
Get him in. I've already added him. I added him on Monday morning. Top 10 sold. Let's talk about them. Joey Manu, big one. And the most questions in the chat tonight, which is why we've saved it to now, because everyone's jumping off. I haven't actually checked their up-to-date stats as of right now. Actually, I'll do it right now. It'll only take me 2 seconds. 8,330 people have traded him out. So nearly 12% of trades are Joey Manu out this week, and I assume it's Joey Manu down to Billy Smith. What are your thoughts on Manu? Do you hold or do you
Yep.
sell?
Yep. He's now a dual position player. I hold him. Looks not to be too serious. I think it's a bit of a media beat up. I value the opinion of someone like the NRL physio more. And he seems to think from the injury, he should be available to play round 14, which is when you want your Roosters players to fire. Genuine captain option in that week. He's been a genuine captain option almost every week since I've got him. And he's just a really good footballer where in a good team, I know they haven't been so good the last couple of weeks, but maybe they get a rocket up, through Tedesco and all those blokes coming in to Origin playing really good footy again. There's too much talent on that team for him not to score well every week, whether it's in the centres or whether it's at 5/8. His 83 break even is something that he could cover on any given night against any team. And I don't need him this week. So let's just sit him on the bench. What else are you going to do with 600K?
Yeah, I think most people have stacked centre wing with 4 guns anyway. I mean, and also then Billy Smith's playable this week. They're playing the Dragons.
Yep.
Like that could be anything. So
Yep.
whilst I'm upset that Manu misses that really nice Dragons matchup, he is a hold for me. And let me tell you why. Because everything that you mentioned, spot on, but also NRL physios talked about average length of this kind of low ankle sprain injury and how long players have missed due to a similar sprain. So Taruva didn't even miss a week. So Taruva had a very similar one, looked like he'd been sniped. He trained throughout the week and he played the next weekend. And it looked like he nearly had his whole leg blown off the way that he reacted to it. So they're always talking about Barker's worse than the bite with this injury. Taruva missed, took him a week to recover. Liam Martin did 2 lateral ligaments, completely tore them and was out for 1 week. Philip Sammy missed 6 weeks, but that was a complete tear and surgery. Kobe Hetherington missed 1 week in 2021. Tarpany missed 2 weeks in 2021. Tedesco completely tore his in 2017 and only missed 3 weeks. Nathan Cleary had a really high grade one in 2019 and missed 3.5 weeks. And then the rest of them are 1 week. Benji Marshall, 2018, 1 week. Leilua, 2020, 1 week.
Benji Marshall was about 47 back then.
Exactly. Cooper Cronk missed 5 days. Blake Austin, 1 week. Josh Dugan, 1 week. Frizzell, really bad sprain, 1 week. James Roberts, who, I mean, he's held together by bloody paper mache. He missed 2 weeks. Like, when we're looking at all of the history from these injuries, there's probably 80% of these guys that I've just mentioned over the last 5 years with exactly the same injury that missed 2 weeks or less. And considering the Roosters have the bye in round 13, he'll play round 14.
If you hold him 1 week and it looks like he's out for 4 weeks or whatever, surely you have somebody else you can trade other than Joey Manu this week for Billy Smith. Like, you can legit trade anybody. He's 280K. And
I think people are trading Jared Croker, looking at top 10 sold. So people have Croker, people have Alamotti. People have, he's also the 5th most sold. People have, they still got AKP. I mean, if you really need to go down that road, go AKP down.
I prefer I love the idea of keeping AKP, but I prefer that over Joey Manu, 100%.
Yeah, if that's your only option, for sure. So there's many other options.
If you've got 7 players there, you've got more options than this.
Yep. So he's most sold, but I would suggest people hold if they're listening, because I would be very confident in saying he'll be back round 14, and also we'll be playing fullback in round 16, surely. He plays fullback round 16 when Teddy's in Origin camp. Does Teddy back up round 17? Who knows, considering how he's been going this year. It could be anything. Zach Hoskins, second most sold. We've been pretty open about the fact that we'd move him on.
Yep. I actually thought that we made more money out of him. I got on at like 460K and he's sitting there at 547. Been a bit of a plotter, but got those points. Nearly hit 600K there for a week. And I decided to hold. You know what? It cost me 40K. I'm not too disappointed.
But also, you're getting half-decent scores from him. He hasn't been bad. He scores you 50 to 70 every single week. So, and that's without any tries or any attacking stats, really. So he's done a job. Made about 60K, 70K from him.
I don't actually hate keeping Hosking this week. He like we said, he scores 50 to 70 every week. He's got a break even of 74. I think I'll be looking to trade him, but yeah, I don't hate the hold.
I think it's a bit of a luxury in terms of people going to Luki or going down via Jules to Billy Smith or whoever it be. Or a lot of people are trading Hosking to Harrison Edwards as well.
Yep.
I'm in the sell boat. I'm selling him, but
Yep. Okay,
not a big concern. Chance Nickel-Klokstad, third most sold. They're on the buy this week, the Warriors. He's got a 77 break even, 529K. I mean, you held him up until now. I'm sure people held him through that time where he missed a couple of weeks through the Warriors.
Yep.
And now the Warriors have a buy. You got him for next week. So I don't see a point in selling him.
I'm definitely not selling him this week. As an owner, I'm riding the wave. He can get 90 in a week. He can get 100 in a week. He's been looking fantastic.
Yeah, you've been really high on Chance as well. So I completely understand that one. I'd hold for sure. I mean, I'm holding Warriors players like Torhu and that this week, and a little bit of a different conversation, Torhu versus C&K, but I think they're both
Chance is sort of one of those blokes that I really wanted to add because I really liked him. And then I thought that the Warriors weren't going to be very good and then didn't add him. And then, rectified my mistake in about round 3 or 4. I can see myself finishing with him being my 5th or 6th centre wing this year.
Yep. Tommy Turbo, 4th most sold, 53 break even. Don't sell. I don't get it at all. Why would you hold him all the way up to now? Like, just hold him another week.
I don't understand the holding him to now, but you do probably hold him another week. He could not get selected for Origin.
Correct.
There is a world where that happens.
That's exactly my point. Is that what if he doesn't get picked for Origin next week? With every chance he doesn't. Like, surely common sense prevails, and you're picking guys that are in form at centre. Campbell Graham, it'll be either Campbell Graham or Turbo, considering Latrell's the other centre.
Yeah.
So hold him. He might not get named, and he might play around 13 for you. It could be very nice. We talked about Alamotti already. James Tedesco also is the 6th most sold this week, 82 break even. I remind people that they're playing the Dragons this week. Like, I feel like if there's ever going to be a bounce back for James Tedesco, this could be the game that he has that bounce back. Yeah, we know he's capable of a big 150 plus, and he hasn't looked anywhere near scoring that kind of points this year. But I feel like you may as well hold him this week. I don't know who you're going to this week if you're trading out Tedesco.
Yeah, like I probably would have traded him out for somebody like Dream Baller or someone coming through, unless you are upgrading to Latrell. It's kind of a hold at this point. I suppose somebody has to make that list. It's not a massive amount of people trading out Tedesco this week. So, and
the last 4 most sold players, Jared Croker, I assume is a Billy Smith trade, so I'm okay with that. I'm holding Croker personally because I got him for round 13, so I want that number for round 13. He could be good for me there. Jackson Ford is the 8th most sold, 58 break even. Again, they're on the buy, but you got him for round 13, so I don't love that either. Tyrell Sloan, 9th most sold. Honestly, even though you probably got him for round 13, he's got an 80 break even. He could end up low 300K again in 2 weeks' time.
And he could end up scoring 10 in round 13.
Which is
why
exactly
are we adding a number when we don't think he's that good?
Yeah, agreed. He's one that plays round 13 that I'd be more than happy to sell this week if I still had him. But I luckily didn't go there. You did, but you bailed pretty quick. So I think you've got to make that decision. Either you hold him or I'd probably just bail. And, if you can go to Billy Smith this week, big win.
Again, could have seen him worth 300K. Got rid of him because I thought of all the ways that I could spend 150K. That would be the difference between Reed Marnie and JMK if it comes up. So there you go.
And then the 10th most sold is Isaiah Katoa. I mean, they got the Storm this week, but 393K, 26 break even. He's been okay. He's going to be my ticket to be able to play with my halfback 5'8" duel for my trade next week, which I'll talk about very soon. So I'm going to hold him for that number for round 13 too. We'll cover the live questions very soon, but we had a couple of questions on Twitter and Facebook and stuff throughout the week. And Eddie the Cat on Twitter asked us, is Hammer a sell? And I saw this one come up a couple of times in here. Given there's a good chance Hammer might play Origin, is he a sell?
Yep.
100%. So the next question, I guess, then becomes who plays fullback while he's in Origin camp?
Good question.
I'd say Jermaine Asako probably plays fullback.
Yeah, probably.
Or Tessie New.
I actually don't like it for his Supercoach point. We know Tessie New wants to play fullback. Maybe Jermaine Asako's just at this point in his career just okay to play on the wing, and they put Tessiu back and, maybe give Valence Tavare a run at centre. Yeah, I kind of like it. I don't think it really matters. I don't think Tessiu is Supercoach relevant, and I don't think unless you already own a Sarko, you're ever going to buy him through this period. So,
yep. I think the reason is coming from there's a fair bit of word that Dane Gagai has lost his origin spot and Hammer has that centre position this year. So it'd be interesting to see what teams look like next week. Brett Ryan asked us on Facebook, is Carraz now an option? Could go Manu to Carraz. It also has Croker. Do we hold Croker for another week? So a bit of a two-part question.
I think for sorry, is there a bit of lag there? I think for 500k, I wouldn't move Manu. We've been very vocal, but I think that there's other blokes that you can move. Like Cam Pereira to Carraz with that base is a much safer option. Like if you own him. Will Warbrick to Carraz, much safer option. If you have the numbers for round 13, I actually really like getting Carraz.
Yep. I'm on board for that. I think that could be a good play. So let's tackle some live questions. Troy is selling Warbrick for Billy Smith. I like that. Melissa Hanson's asked how many players should we aim for as a minimum for round 13?
13 for 13 minimum. I'd love to have the luxury of having 14 in case somebody scores really poorly. Yeah,
I think if you have 15 or more, you might be stretched in potentially round 14. So you probably need to, it's a fine balancing act, isn't it? I agree with you. I think 13 or 14 is the number for next week. Any more than that, round 14 could be a drama for you.
Yep.
So, Steve's keeping Hosking. Look, I mean, we spoke about the fact that we can't really argue with anyone holding him. He's on a good team.
Don't hate it.
Thoughts on holding Niokore?
I think somebody like Hylam Luki, for example, is probably a nice little swap over, playing the same games over the bye period. We know I love Niokore, but I think Jackson Ford's sort of taken the spotlight from him this year.
Yep. Jim Brew asks thoughts on Lockie Miller.
Yeah, pretty good at football, eh?
Supercoach perspective, I think if I had less issue with round 14, I like Lockie Miller in the centre wing. You wouldn't have him at fullback, but I think everybody's loaded up on Eels players. Everyone has Carraz. Sorry, not Carraz. Everybody has Garrick. Everybody has, or most people have Marju. I think if you have 6 or more players from those 3 teams, you're going to have to reconsider what you're doing in round 14 and probably make a couple of moves there so that you don't get caught short. So if you have 4 or less players from Manly, Eels, and the Knights, pull the trigger on Lockie Miller. I reckon he's the better version of James Tedesco this year.
Yeah. And centre wing eligible. I think if you have Lockie Miller, he's definitely a hold through this period. I'm not sure you go out to get him at his price at the moment. Look, maybe he drops a little bit of cash. I think he's got a break even of nearly 100 this week. I probably wait and then maybe look after round 14 because I really like the idea of getting Lockie Miller in, but I think if you don't add him, you're not adding him this week. If you do have him, yeah, he's definitely a hold through that period because he would be one of those best 6 players that you have not playing round 14.
Yeah, but as a player though, he's definitely I'd consider him a top 4 centre wing this year, Lockie Miller. So yep. I think he's a good player. So if you don't have problems with round 14, I'd grab him. Last one here, Teddy to Garrick. So I mean, I was looking at the matchup this week, like I just mentioned, and I'd be reluctant to sell Teddy this week. But Garrick's bottoming out. So if this is kind of your only opportunity to get Garrick and you don't have money in the bank or maybe you're low on trades or something, yeah, I'd pull the trigger on that, considering Garrick's going to cover you next week.
We say every week that Teddy could, this is the week he gets 100. If there is any opportunity, it's this week, but I probably haven't seen enough. I think if it's going to save you 30k on Garrick, I haven't looked at what Teddy's break even is, unfortunately. But I think Garrick bottomed out last week at 540k. We're starting to see the rise of him, of course, being 570k or something this week. If you told me at the start of the year, I would lock Garrick in at 570k at the start of any year for a season-long keeper.
Yeah, I paid 700 plus for him, and so if you can get him at 550, keeper for the year.
I paid 700 plus, and I'm genuinely not disappointed.
Yeah, same. Teddy's break even's 82 as well, so not terrible, but could cover it. But again, it could be the week to do it. If you've already planned your trades like I have for next week, and this is part of your big 2-week trade plan, just pull the trigger. Just do it. Speaking of 2-week trade plan. Speaking of 2-week trade plan, so over the next 2 weeks, I plan 5 trades. Now that'll leave me with 22 from round 14 to 20. From round 14 to 20, it'll leave me with about 12 trades across 6 to 7 weeks, which I'm fine with. I shouldn't need to make too many moves throughout the origin period, the way that I've set my team up. So I'm going Hosking out to Highland Luki this week. I'm going Taruva down to Billy Smith. Those are my 2 moves this week. Pretty kind of cookie cutter, I guess. I'm passing on Harrison Edwards for the reasons we mentioned at the start of the pod. Just not sure about job security at this stage. And look, David Mawali's not bleeding cash or causing AE issues at the moment for me. So not overly concerned with David Mawali.
Did you say Highland Luki?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Hosking out for Luki, Taruva out for Billy Smith.
Cool. Yeah, cool. Yeah, follow.
And then, so I'm holding Manu, like we mentioned. I think if he comes back round 14, which I'm pretty confident he does, that he plays 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. And he'll probably play fullback round 16. So I don't mind that. And also then that'll leave me with 190K in the bank, 25 trades left in a boost. And then next week I will make 3 trades. I'll go Val Holmes to Jack Bird, Nico Hines to Cody Walker via Katoa, and Sonny Luke up to Reece Robson. So if you're not sure why I'm trading Nico Hines and you think I'm a bloody madman, go back and check the buy planning episode. We explained it a lot there as to reasons why we're moving Nico Hines and not Cleary. You could hold both. There's argument to hold both of those guys and just, at the end of the day, 13, 16, and 19, you get your best 13 scorers anyway. So if you can cover that, great. But when you look at Cody Walker's draw and the Rabbitohs draw through the buy period, you're probably going to want a piece of that pie. And I do. So I'm thinking I'll then get Nico back round 18 against the Dragons. So that is my, I guess, 2-week trade plan. Thoughts, comments? Am I crazy?
Yeah, I really like the Cody Walker ad. I am, of course, if we have a look at that buy plan, it looking like somebody like Hines is the guy to move. Look, I see in the chat, what if Hines doesn't make Origin? Of course you're going to keep him. He should be 100% owned if he doesn't make Origin. Should make Origin. Probably the best player in the game at the moment. Honestly, hand us the chip right now if you're not selecting Nico Hines. But yeah, I like Cody Walker. Obviously it's a big play between blokes like Mitchell Moses, which the masses will probably go to. You know what? Thinking back at it, I actually think, and looking at the teams that Cody Walker, that's a really good play because I think Cody Walker outscores Mitch Moses then through that period. It's really big play.
Yep. Steve, maybe we'll quickly touch on it now. The reason I'm moving Hines and not Cleary. So when you look at round 13, Nico Hines, considering if he plays Origin, misses 13, then has the Broncos and Melbourne, round 14 and 15, then misses 16 and misses 17. So he plays 2 games out of the next 5 rounds from round 13 through to 17 and has 2 really tough matchups. And I completely agree that he could score 150 against anybody. Doesn't matter what the matchup is. But for me, I'm looking at, can Cody Walker across 4 games out of 5, can he score more than Hines scores in 2 in really 2 tough matchups? And for me, I think Cody Walker could score the same, if not more, through that period. So that's the logic there.
Exactly. And it's going to help you every week. So,
yeah, for sure. I think Rabbitohs miss maybe round 16, but I'm not concerned about that. I've got enough cover round 16. I've got the most players available round 16 in comparison to 13 and 19. So that's the way I'm looking, mate. What are you thinking trades-wise for this week?
So I still can't decide if these cheapies are worth it when they aren't playing 13. I think I will go Billy Smith, and I can go Hosking using the duel of Willie Army. I do just think the way that we've been sort of saying, don't go Headwards. But I do think that I look at someone like Mo Ali, such a plotter, and think, I've been waiting for this opportunity all year. Like, why don't I just get rid of him? Straight swap, make some cash. He's definitely going to make cash. Whether he makes enough is yet to be seen. But you know what? If he's gone in 4 weeks, he's probably not an AE nightmare. He probably just drops completely out of the lineup. And then, you know what? When I need 200K, I can nuff him. I think with how many trades, like I've got 26 trades coming into this week, that's a bit of a luxury for me. I really like everything you've said about Hylam Luki as well. You've sort of convinced me. But essentially, I'm going to be sitting there with 350K next week to get Stefano to Tohu, which I'm really excited about. Another one of those blokes that I've just really wanted to trade out basically every week since I've had him. And Tohu plays 13. I need one more number for 13. And yeah, I'm just going to roll with the punches. I'm just going to go, look, let's see how this week turns up. Let's have a look to see what Parramatta players don't get selected. You know, maybe I get, Hopgood. Maybe I get Ryan Madison. Hey, maybe I'm adding Mitchell Moses. You know what? It'll be somebody like that coming in. But Hylam Luki this week would give me that extra number. So maybe if I pull the trigger this week, and I'll probably put my trade thoughts on Twitter. Look, maybe if I add Hylam Luki this week, I don't need to burn another trade next week. I can just go Tohu.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I mean, from what we've been saying, you've been thinking about Tohu for the last couple of weeks. You'd kick yourself if you didn't make that move.
Yeah.
So if it sets you up to make that move next week with the cash that it leaves in the bank, then great.
I probably would have went. I'm about 6K short of just going Hosking to Tohu, and I think I have the coverage there. I probably would have just went Hosking to Tohu and Billy Smith down from somebody else if I could have, and just sat him on the bench this week. But yeah, look, I won't. So
before we wrap up, mate, captain, vice captain, what are your thoughts on this week?
Captain, our Lord and Savior, Nico. Probably vice captain, somebody playing early, somebody with a high ceiling, like a Reece Walsh or someone. I really liked what I saw from Reece Walsh last week. Do I think he's going to score that well against the Panthers? Probably not. But you know what? He has as high ceiling as any.
Yeah, my vice captain this week, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to play this one. I think it might be Alex Johnston against the Eels on Friday night.
Yep.
And then obviously with the Sharks playing the first game on Saturday, they're at Coffs Harbour. So I haven't checked the rain or the weather or anything like that, but you have to captain Nico against Newcastle. You just have to if you've got
not. Absolute no-brainer. I think you're trying to outthink the room if you're not captaining Nico this week. Worst case scenario, everybody else captains him and everybody gets 40 points. Best case scenario, you end up with 400.
And I think the only other captain option that I'd be tempted to do this week would be David Fifita against the Bulldogs on Sunday afternoon. That would probably be the only other consideration. But I mean, we saw what Nico Hines did, right? Like he just made it look so easy. He scored 98 on his dick. A couple of try assists, didn't even really do much for the middle 50 minutes of the game. And just either side, he just dominated and just accumulates points like no one else. So I think you just need to go with that option.
I wish Fifita was playing early on in the week. Unfortunately, the Titans never play a Friday night game. So, bit disappointing for Supercoach. I'd love to slap the VC on him. But you know what? It's the draw. I'll probably just go. Actually, I don't hate. Steve's mentioned in the chat VC Billy Smith. I actually really don't. I hadn't considered it because he's a 290K cheapie. But as somebody that captained Hopgood this year, you know what? You might have just talked me into it, Steve. Let's ride it together.
And I think he's also mentioned Latrell in Indigenous round this week against the Eels. If you have Latrell in your team, he needs to be your VC. Or completely, you could just go straight C on Latrell this week. Indigenous round, I think he averages 93. I'm sure I saw that stat somewhere on Twitter today. I haven't fact-checked it, though, but it'd be very interesting. It seems like he steps up in Indigenous round every single year for obvious reasons.
Latrell averages about 93 against anyone, though, to be honest. So
Pretty much. Guys, that'll do us. We've gone through everything. Thank you for hopping on. Thanks for obviously dropping your comments. We really appreciate your support. If you want to continue to give your support and you obviously haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. Please follow us. Please leave us a review if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your audio content as well. It helps us reach more people and grow the brand, so we would appreciate that. Otherwise, we will see you on Sunday for the weekly wrap-up, the Sunday sesh, as always. But until then, good luck this week. Hopefully plenty of green arrows and some big scores. This has been the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast. We will catch you later.
Cheerio.